And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It is Tuesday, January 22nd, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. Along with me is my co-host, my son, Joe Hagmann. Folks, you're about to hear 3 hours of unbiased and uncensored news, information, analysis. This is information, folks, that you need to know in these perilous times. We broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on the Internet, of course, at HomelandSecurityUS.com. That's HomelandSecurityUS.com. You can also watch us as well as we simulcast in high-def video on the Christians United Broadcasting Network. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us, and thank you for your belief and continued trust in us as we walk through this minefield of current events together. And we want to thank each and every one of you as well for your support, everyone who has helped us stay on the air, and for telling others about the program. We've grown exponentially over the last 6 months. I like to just astounds me when I think we're now heard in 41 countries, and our show has been downloaded almost 3 million times. 3 million unique downloads. Anyway, Joe, welcome to the program.
Glad to be here, and I just want to make a few announcements. One, Blog Talk Radio has informed us that they are having serious problems with their phone system, and I don't think we'll be able to take callers through BTR tonight. They said they will let us know when it's resolved, so I hope everybody can hear us fine. But if we try to take calls, and I know it's been happening on other shows, that it's basically like it sounded last night. So until they get that fixed, we apologize, and we'll do what we can to...
It's good to know that it was not our problem.
Right.
It's good to know that it was something totally different, which for once it was not our issue.
Yeah, and also tomorrow night we're going to have a special show at a different time, 1 hour later, 9 p.m. Eastern Time to midnight, with Steve Quayle. But Genetic Armageddon has arrived, and my dad is. I don't know if he posted an article yet on what's going to be going on during the show, topic-wise, but. It's going to be very interesting from little conversation we had.
That's right. I'll tell you, I'm excited for that show. I was telling Joe that 2003, Steve Quayle wrote the book Genetic Armageddon, and he sent me a copy on June 3rd, 2004. And I took some notes after I got the book. I take a lot of notes, so there are a lot of margin notes in my book, and the copy of my book, Genetic Armageddon, and some of them I could actually feel the. I remember what I was thinking. I suppose might even be a better way of putting it. For example, the one part was in the book was an entry about how Big Brother would be used on the street corners, and Steve wrote, and this does have something to do with genetic Armageddon. Excuse me, but Steve wrote that the NTS, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and others would be using the photo radar cameras to conduct surveillance, and
also about the light, the transmission, data transmission.
Yeah, and so I wrote in the column here something to the effect that I doubt this, and so when we had talked about this yesterday, I think it was it last night?
Yep.
and I was going through the book again today, and I thought, holy cow, how correct was he? He was not only correct, he was way ahead of his time. So I thought it was just fantastic. But other parts of the book that connect with the Hitler part, what Hitler did with genetics, Hitler's regime with genetics. I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, this is crazy. And then compare it to the news, and I don't know whether you saw this, or I think we talked about this maybe again yesterday, about the leading geneticist coming out and saying, well, we want to recreate the Neanderthal man.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Holy cow!
I didn't know what to make of it when I read it. I was kind of it didn't get my attention going, and it didn't. I could care less. If they want to create a Neanderthal man, well, that's sick science right there. First of all, second of all, it's just downright wrong to try to.
It's wrong on so many levels.
Yeah,
but the author of this, this news story from Catholic Online, said that it's an idea so far-fetched that it's difficult to even begin to conceive how or why a scientist might manage to clone and produce a Neanderthal man. And the author of the article, states his concerns, ethical concerns, and what have you. But can you imagine? They're only looking for a woman willing to be a surrogate. Now, that's scary to me, especially knowing that I'm sure you're going to have somebody raise their hand or volunteer. I'll be a surrogate.
Especially if they're getting paid or getting some type of benefit out of it.
So after 30,000 years of extinction, you've got some professor of genetics.
It's like Jurassic Park.
Nice.
Human.
It wants to bring the Neanderthal man back using genetic engineering. And apparently after successfully mapping the human genome and mastering this genetic manipulation, this professor believes it's possible, with merely the assistance of a woman acting as a surrogate, to recreate the Neanderthal. So, yeah, you're
I hope nobody signs up to do that, because how horrible is that?
It's an offense against God's laws. So
yeah,
but I guess I just want to say this: that and more tomorrow night. So it's going to be a riveting 3 hours.
We got a lot of news we're going to get into tonight. I'm just going to rattle off some headlines. I don't want to read a piece that I wanted to read yesterday that was sent to me by a few listeners that was really good. First of all, a senator asked the CIA nominee, John Brennan, the head of the CIA now, when can drones kill Americans? We're going to be talking about that. Also, we're going to be talking about some of the things that are coming out of the Obama campaign, such as Obama closing air defense system on U.S.-Mexico border. Texas and America are now vulnerable to attack from low-altitude missiles and aircraft. In India, police warn Kashmir residents of possible nuclear attack and advise bomb shelters. We have gun control news. Dianne Feinstein is going to introduce an assault weapons ban on Thursday. We have more sheriffs coming out against the enforcement of Obama's gun laws, saying they will not enforce the gun laws that Obama is trying to implement. We also have news of corrupt Chinese politicians buying billions in U.S. real estate. We have in Japan, the Japan Prime Minister says, let elderly people hurry up and die.
Yeah, that struck me as being so off the wall, odd there, because the Japanese, they've always revered their elderly.
It's their culture. It's part of their. It's like how Americans lived, in the 1800s. Everybody lived in the same one-room house, and they took care of each other from birth to death. The family did, as a unit. This is what we're seeing. We're seeing people being, the elderly, being targeted for euthanasia because, well, we just don't have the resources to take care of you anymore, or we don't have the time, or we don't want to worry about it. And it's a truly sick society we live in when we see these things like abortion and infanticide and now euthanasia, and it's happening in countries in Europe and across the world more frequently than we would know, more than that's reported. But first I wanted to read this. This is written, it's called The End of the World. It's the end of the world again. And it goes, and right on cue, once more, the end of the world is nigh. No longer are men forewarning of catastrophe because of some guy a few thousand years ago ran out of rock and thus ended his calendar. Now it is an asteroid that will do us in. As always, seemed to be the case, it isn't the world that's going around buying helmets and headgear for the space rocks falling on their heads. It's the church or those who profess to be of the household of faith. When we start to believe extra biblical theories in lieu of what the Bible says, we are implicitly denying the word of God by our very actions. The Bible tells us this world will not be done in by an asteroid, a meteor, a giant rock, space junk, or whatever else man has been saying. Yes, there will be signs both in the heavens and the earth, and those signs are already being made manifest if you know where to look. So what's my problem with the apocalyptic mindset? Why can't I just live and let live and allow some good folks to be making honest buck off some titanium helmets? Because these things distract us from our primary purpose as believers and saints of God and children of promise. Whether it's 88 Reasons Why Christ was to return in 1988 or Harold Camping's May 2011 Miss, the Mayan calendar, Nibiru, space aliens, black holes, or Grandma's toaster, whatsoever serves to distract us from the pursuit of Christ and living out righteousness and holiness in our daily lives must summarily be rejected and exorcised. If the enemy can keep us from growing in Christ, if he can keep you distracted with looking behind every bush and under every rock for either the end of the world or some demonic entity or another, he is one. And it goes on from there. It's a really good article. It's called the site is Homeward Bound, and it's the end of the world again. But I would continue reading that because it has a lot in there that is true. I mean, our number one focus must be the word of the Lord.
I read that yesterday or the day before. I'm not sure when that came out. I wasn't.
It's something we don't have. I mean, we don't mention it because I'd like to think I practice that, more than talking about other things. And in my personal life, I do. But coming on the radio, we talk about a lot of news events because they're important. But we're not calling for the end of the world or anything. But it puts into perspective what is important.
Well, the bottom line with this, I think, is no one knows the day, the hour, of the second coming. Now we know the season, and I think we can all agree that we're in that season.
Right.
But the author, I believe, is
Michael Boldea Jr.
Right. He's referring to the look at the Bible for the answers, not for man's interpretation.
Exactly.
And that's the big thing.
Right.
So, can we study that? Of course we can. It's to me, it's a very important distinction.
Yeah, he's making a point by using all these things that people say are going to happen. Like he references the 2011, the big campaign they had about the rapture and the Nibiru and aliens. But we got to understand also that there are things that are going to happen, deceptions that are going to take place, which we have to be aware of, that there are deceptions. So, but first and foremost is the knowledge in the Word and the relationship with Jesus Christ. Then you can worry about what times we're in and what we need to do in these times.
Exactly, and I think it's important for us to hopefully we can all agree that we attempt to point out that we're going to see these deceptions take place, and to learn or to understand that we're going to be victims of deception, or they're going to try to make us victims of deception. Yeah, and we have to be very careful with that. Yeah, we do have a lot of news to cover, as you pointed out, Joe. A lot of news. But before we get into this, the news, I just want to relate to listeners here a story, a case that I've been working on here for the last, let's say, 2 weeks.
Yeah, I got to the studio today, and you told me about somebody you've been communicating with that we're going to be talking with this evening.
And folks, let me set this up here a little bit, just so everyone understands. Now we had obviously one of the worst alleged massacres, or not alleged, but one of the worst killings of children at Sandy Hook. Just a horrific incident. Meanwhile, we have abortions that are taking place every day. We've got crimes against children, every day.
And I got some audio queued up on that for later.
Okay, we have Obama, actually, which is the audio I'm sure you're referring to. Killing more children. In fact, Obama has killed 11 times the number of victims of Sandy Hook already through drones.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now,
drones alone.
Drones alone. That's correct. So if you think about all of this, if you think about all of this, go ahead and bring them up. I mean, go ahead and connect.
Oh, okay.
So if you think about all this, what's the standard excuse? Well, it's any laws that we make or any actions that we're going to take through executive action, executive orders, whatever. It's for the children. You notice how for the children has become this. For the children has become this phrase, this reason, this rhetoric. For the children, everything we do, all the laws that we are implementing in psychology and logic, this rationalization, it's for the children. This brings out this unconscious defense mechanism. So people will comply. People will comply with
whatever the agenda is based on we saw Obama parade the children out there when he was writing up signing his gun control executive orders. But the hypocrisy of him doing that and saying, like I read on Wednesday last week, he took a page right out of Mind+Control where Hitler says people would suffer, the taking away of liberties for the safety of children if it was presented in that way, but not in those words. That wasn't an exact quote. But what they have done, these dictators have done over and over, is position themselves with children and put them as what they say is the top priority.
Right.
At the same time, they know that the child is worthless to them. They don't care about life. They've killed more people, these dictators, in the 21st century than anything else.
Right. It's always for the fulfillment of this ulterior motive, this hidden agenda. No, 2 weeks ago, in fact, not quite 2 weeks ago, I got a call from a gentleman named Brian Robertson. Folks, let me tell you a little bit about Brian Robertson and why this is so important for you folks to know. Brian Robertson is classified as a sexual predator. All right, he's 39 years old. Now, first of all, when he called me and said, he explained the situation. He said, "I'm classified as a sexual predator." And immediately, what do you think of, ladies and gentlemen, when you hear that? You think, "Oh man,
That's what I said. What are you doing,
man? Really?" Well, exactly. So immediately there's this bias that forms, whether you think you have an open mind or not. And myself, after being an investigator for 25 plus years, it's I still have. I've seen enough to understand. Look, to me, where there's smoke, there's fire. Well, I looked at I listened to Mr. Robertson. He said, look, I'm classified as a sexual predator. Here's what happened. And he gave me the situation as to what happened. And I'm going to bring him on, and I'll let him explain to you what happened, how he became classified as a sexual predator, which, understanding it, having that backdrop, gave me a completely different perspective on things like Megan's Law and even the classification of people as sexual predators. This gentleman is in a world of hurt as we speak. Brian Robertson is going to be 40 this year. He's got 4 biological children. Two they're custodial children between him and his wife, and they live in New York State. And the situation was such that when Mr. Robertson contacted me and asked me for help, I said, yeah, let me see what I can do. And I asked him to send me all the documentation on his situation, what his complaint was, or what was going on, why he was searching or reaching out to us for help. And as I went through the copious documentation which he provided, meticulous documentation which he provided, I found a pattern here. A pattern of a government that's out of control, our government that's out of control. Of course, we all know this. But in this particular case alone, this is one of the most egregious cases of a man that's been caught in a system so unforgiving that it has not only ruined his life, but it's as we speak, as we are right now on air. And in fact, we're trying to bring him on, and if there's an issue with him not necessarily answering our way, it could very well be he's communicating with his wife, who is actually in conference in New York State right now with her children, with their children.
No, he's trying to get on, and Troy, I just sent you the contact, and I hope they connect, if you guys connect to each other, and then you can bring him on.
But we're going to bring him on, but folks, you've got to listen to his story, because this the situation that Mr. Robertson finds himself in is a situation we all could find ourselves in. And you might think, well, no, wait a minute, no, that's wrong. I never find myself in a position of ever being classified as a sexual predator. Well, you might think that, and in fact, I believe that. Until you start looking at the, at exactly how little it takes for the government to open a file on you and to start probing and investigate, and even on hearsay, or even on even on the slightest, the most loose allegations, and then how the government or law enforcement, and this is important too, as we see law enforcement, the gloves come off. Law enforcement and coming after the people, especially Christians, and this is another component to this story, the Christian component to this story.
And I haven't heard this story really in whole, or I've heard parts from you, but I'll be learning with the rest of the audience and listening.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm on my deathbed, and I'm just kidding.
You sound a lot better today than you did yesterday.
I'll tell you, I feel 100% better. Even today, I've taken, I think, half a bottle of the Dayquil thing. Now it went from the flu now to just a nagging cold or whatever. But throughout the course of the day, I feel like I'm a new man. But anyway, Mr. Robertson, after relating to me all of the information up front, and then allowing me the access to all the documentation, which a lot of it was was pretty ugly. the allegations were ugly. But after going through it, I realized that, folks, this can happen. Like I said, this can happen to all of us, any of us. Either, well, maybe not 100%, but for this particular exact manner, but certainly there is that possibility. And as we see the police departments, the law enforcement, the government's acting with less restrictions, we have to be aware of what could happen. Even if you're listening to this and you're older and thinking, I'm beyond that stage. Well, you've got kids maybe, or you've got grandkids, or people of that age. It's important to understand what the state governments and federal governments are doing. The federal government is doing to split the family, not protect the family, but to split the family.
Right.
All in the name of all in the cause of for the children. Now, that said, it's my understanding we've got Mr. Brian Robertson on. Mr. Robertson, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. How's my audio?
I don't know, Joe. Does it sound all right?
Sounds all right.
Okay. So let me make one correction here.
All right.
And I think you did it by accident, which most people do. I've never been classified as a sexual predator. I'm treated like one, though. There's a big difference.
Okay. I'm sorry. And words are very important here. So you are classified as
in North Carolina, I was under a 10-year registration rule. After 10 years, I can petition the court to be released from registration. Well, being I'm not in North Carolina, each state has different rules, which I have learned that. Okay, in Pennsylvania, when I lived in Pennsylvania, because North Carolina had a notification system, and I'm sympathetic, the notification system across the board in North Carolina was if a sex offender's in the neighborhood, they would let schools and daycares know that you're there. So because they did that notification system, Pennsylvania automatically put me at a level 3, didn't classify me as a predator, but treated me like one. They went door to door, passed out flyers, let them know I was there, had no problems. Yeah, people got a little skittish at first, but they realized, wait a minute, this guy's never caused no problems. They never really bothered us. And until New York, they classified me as a level 3 with no designation. No designation means you're not a predator, you're not violent, you're not anything, okay? You're just level 3, which is supposed to be the worst case. And that's where the nightmare begins.
Well, and a nightmare it is. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let Joe and I are going to turn the floor over to Brian Robertson. That's his real name. He's coming out. He's got nothing to hide. I can tell you this, if folks, you remember the Wade Hicks case that we broke on this program. This is Wade Hicks and TSA. This is Brian Robertson and the state of New York, or the I don't know. Pick a state and Children's Services or Children's. What is it?
Children's Services, Child Protective Services.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. So we're going to turn the floor over to Mr. Robertson. Tell us your story, and just go at it. Go ahead and just start from the beginning.
Okay. Got married to this lady, and she's the best thing ever happened to me. We had a child together, then got her biological son. I call him mine. Working in Pennsylvania, the company decided to move me to New York because they wanted to keep me with the company when they closed the warehouse in Pennsylvania. So I moved to New York. And simply because I followed the rules, moved into the state, went to the police department, told them I was here, go through the process to get the classification hearing, do everything else. Once I was officially in the system, New York came after my kids. They've been trying ever since to take our children from us We've done nothing. Their whole original allegation was simply because I was in the house. And like Doug said, he has all the documentation. Because me and my wife keep records of everything. They are trying to take our children. My wife's right now going through a nightmare situation. There was never an allegation made of anything against my children. Okay? I go to work every day, drive 45 minutes from Ellenville, New York to Chester, New York to do my job. Come home. My wife stayed home with the kids. We had one car. On my 2 days off, my first day off, we would go shopping together. That was the one day I hate shopping. My wife will tell you that. But because I love my wife, it's the day that she wanted to spend time with me. So it would go while my son was in school. We would go do a shopping trip, go buy the groceries and everything needed for the week, and then my next day off we would stay home. So,
okay. Right, before we get too far down the current road here, the current path that we're on, we probably should go back. Prior to you coming on, I did not give the full history here. Back in 1995. Let's go back there.
Okay.
The root cause here, or the basis of how you were classified. Again, I want to be very clear, not as a sexual predator, but as a threat to children, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing, your whole odyssey began when you were about 20 years old, or right around 21 years old, back in 1994-95.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What happened back then to cause you to be to warrant your current classification?
In 1994, me and my ex-wife had suspected that my daughter at the time had been touched because at the time my stepfather-in-law had a previous conviction for messing with his stepdaughter. So we started our own investigation. We didn't go to CPS. We didn't do that. We called the hospital, set up an arrangement, had my daughter looked at, come back that it was clean. She had no signs, no evidence of any kind of abuse. Well, my stepmother started having the same suspicion, so she called DSS. DSS put their bullseye on me. They came to the house, said there was an allegation. We told them what we had done. They even know that we did that. Now, tell me how much sense it makes if I'm supposedly molesting my daughter that we were doing our own investigation on with my stepfather-in-law. None whatsoever.
Right.
So because they knew we had done the investigation, they had my daughter at the time examined again by the same doctor. It came back again clean, no evidence of any kind of sexual abuse. They questioned my daughter. My daughter said numerous times, no, Daddy did not hurt her. And they didn't have anything. Because of my naivete, you know how it is when you're young and how the system likes to dumb you down and don't want you to know your rights, they brought me in for questioning.
Okay, now, folks, pay attention to this now. This is very critical to this, to our situation and to the story. Go ahead. I just want to make sure people really pay attention to what you're going to say next here.
Okay. Well, I'm going to backtrack 1 second. On 4/25/95, Dr. Lawless stated to DSS there was no medical evidence of abuse, none whatsoever. 3 days later, DSS would know that there was none. So why do they need to bring me down for questioning if there is no signs of abuse? Because that's the first question. So on 4/28/95, they take me down. They hold me there, tell me, oh, you can leave anytime you want. You're not under arrest. Okay, me and my ex-wife, well, my wife at the time, is maintaining that we've not done anything. We did this. We followed these rules because we suspected something. They didn't care. When I finally just look at them and say, I've had enough, and I go to leave, they start talking about arrest and won't let me leave. So they have four, for lack of better terms, because it's politically correct, government officials, and they're questioning me. I'm young, don't know what my rights, don't have a lot of family support because I'm young, I know better, that type deal. So it's not like I really talk to my family a lot, so I don't know who to call. I'm scared out of my mind. So they coerced me into a confession. And that's what they used to arrest me and put me away.
And for the record, ladies and gentlemen, I've gone through the documentation, and all I can say is Mr. Robertson was placed under incredible pressure by these, I'll say, police officers, because I know that there's a mixture of both police officers and child welfare workers and what have you. But if you can imagine, here's a young, naive young man, 21-year-old man, just being hounded by these police officers and threatened with arrest. But then you capitulated. From what I was looking through here, it would appear that they said, look, if you just take the easy way out, things will go easier for you.
Oh yeah. They started making promises. Hey, if you admit to what you've done, we'll get you counseling. You can get this behind you, get back with your family. And because I'm afraid of what's getting ready to happen if I go to prison, because I didn't. You got to realize something. The 1995 DSS report that I sent you,
right?
I had never. It was the unicorn. Yeah, I didn't know it existed. Never seen it, never had it, never knew it existed until New York came after me because they went back and got it.
Right.
That's a Brady violation, because if there's any exculpatory evidence to prove your innocence, the prosecution's supposed to turn it over. Well, I kept everything that I had back then. I had never seen this report. And I've maintained the same story for 17 years. My ex-wife, she has said the same thing. When I got this report, you ain't the only person I sent it to. My dad got it. My ex-wife's got it. My ex-wife and my present wife are friends. My daughter back then got it. I sent it to my sister, my brother. I sent it to everybody. I said, see what I told y'all? Here's where it says it.
So as the police were hammering you for a confession, they had a document saying that your daughter was nothing, right? Yet they were still going after you for a confession, which they got under duress, and then that subsequently made you this sexual monster, if you will, and that's a perception now. It's not a legal classification, obviously. So now you're branded. Okay, now you in your attempt to cooperate and out of fear, you go ahead and confess. And of course, you'll take the counseling and whatever. But what happened after you confessed, in quotation marks?
October, roughly 26th of 95, they arrested me. They put me in jail, take me to trial. Remember, I never saw this. I don't know what they got. They made everything out to look so bad. My public defender's saying, hey, you better take this plea bargain because they're going to put you away for a long time if you don't. So me not knowing how the system works, I do that. Okay, I take a plea bargain. Sure. I do my time, and I get out. And, by the way, I'm going to speak on something else right quick. I heard your show from the beginning. You was talking about Hitler. I'm going to bring this a little closer to home. You've probably spoke on this before, but Hitler followed a certain logical progression. What are we following? That same progression. Hitler enacted his own brand of sex offender laws, right, in the 1930s. What did he do? It got a group of people that he could hide laws under to get passed that would take away everybody's rights. He did that first. Then what did they do? Came after the guns. What are we doing? We got our sex offender laws. Now they're coming after the guns. What happened after Hitler did all that? Hey, it's going to happen here.
Which, we've had conversations about this, you and I. I got to tell you, that's absolutely correct, which is why which is why I'm glad you're on tonight, because people need to understand. They need to see the template that's being used, and you, of course, you're in the hot seat. So, but go on, continue with your story. So you're in prison.
Yeah, I got out of prison for that conviction. I got 2 charges. One was suspended it was a 5-year. The first one was a 14-month active sentence. No, take that back. 3-year active sentence, cut in half. I did 14 months. The other part of the sentence was a 5-year sentence, suspended for 10 years with probation for those 10 years. Okay, so I get out, get back on my feet, get a job working at McDonald's, living with my mother, following the rules, and I meet this lady, and we start dating, and she's got a job, and we got a new trailer, new car, everything's going great. I'm like, wow, cool. With my background, I feel like I'm being a success. And then everything hits the fan again. I'm still kind of somewhat naive. And people are saying, how can you be that naive? Well, I'm one of those people that believe in honesty, sometimes to a fault. So her family says, have you been to prison? Yes, I have. Hang my head and I tell them what for. So what do? Without any allegations or anything, they call DSS, and DSS comes after me again.
That's because the girl, their daughter that you were seeing, right?
The girl, yeah.
Okay.
She had a daughter.
Right.
And so they started an investigation. They arrested both of us through that investigation. They charged her with felony child abuse, saying she allowed the abuse to happen because they said there was abuse with this child. But the thing is, on the second job, but the thing is, they had DNA evidence. They never tested it. They had a doctor examine the child and give some shady story of saying, well, can't really tell what happened. Now, we have the documents on that, and I told you that day I can send those to you. I just got to get them scanned in. The doctor said, looks like something happened. Can't really tell when or what was used, but it might have happened. And that's all they have to do is say something happened. I sent Doug 2 links today to a website on a medical site. On one page, what did they say? 80% of the time, they are wrong on when they say something happened. And on the very same website, on another page, they say something along the lines that if we say it happened, it happened.
That's right. Exactly. So you attempting to play by the rules and playing by the rules with the girl that you were seeing, making sure that there was no time where you were alone with her daughter or anything like that.
Right.
Okay, you did everything by the rules, but because the family, and ladies and gentlemen, look, as a father, I can put myself in the position of her father, okay, and thinking, all right, well, I want this guy out of my daughter's life. I mean, I don't want this guy in my daughter's life. Thinking with that prejudice, without knowing that the charges were bogus, that in his hand he had or would have had a report that would completely exonerate him from the initial charges. So it's just getting worse and worse. Okay, when you get so now what happened after the family? And by the way, this family, the girl that you were seeing, very powerful and influential family in the town in which you live. So they had the ability, Brian, if I'm correct here, I think I am, they had the ability to maybe move things along a little bit.
That is correct, because when I was in prison, I'll tell you a story about an Indian guy I met. And I actually had the guards in the prison that read his documents and said this was the case. He was an Indian, his girlfriend was white, her mom was rich, and she was 18, he was 28, and because he was an Indian, they didn't want her together, and so Now remember, she was 18 when they started dating, legal age. They still charged him with statutory rape and put him in prison.
Okay. All right.
So, yes, money talks.
All right. So now, all right. Now, go ahead and because of this alleged probation violation,
Yeah.
you're put in prison.
Yep, I go back to prison. The DA doesn't have a case. He knows that, so he offers me 4 plea bargains. The first plea bargain was a 10-year, then an 8-year, then a 5-year, then a 3-year, and I turn them all down. My lawyer's telling me everything I want to hear. And what is he saying? I've been to a seminar. They can say this and that and the other. It doesn't prove anything, and we can beat this. Okay, no problem. But somewhere along the line, I suspected that he made a deal because he changed his tune and started saying, oh, no, you need to do this, you need to do that. I said, I'm not going to. I haven't done anything. I'm going to take it to trial because that's the one thing I learned from the first experience. I still wonder if somebody called my mom because my mom came and saw me and begged me to take that last plea bargain. Because she says, Brian, if you know how crooked the system is, if they want you, they're going to get you. And I was looking at 82 years. Now,
how long?
82 years.
82 years.
Yeah, so I took the last plea bargain after a lot of crying and praying and talking to Mom about it. And yes, I did a lot of praying.
Which we should mention that during your incarceration in September of 1997, that's when something happened. But I'll let you get into that.
September 26, 1997 is when I gave my life to Christ. I quit playing with him like I had done since I was 14, and I got serious. And my life has not been the same since. I'll tell you that now. But
all right.
I went back after turning all those plea bargains down. Oh, by the way, go back a little bit to the last conviction. One thing I failed to mention under North Carolina general statute, North Carolina cannot convict you solely on a confession. So that's the other thing. If they cannot convict you solely on a confession, how can they put you in prison on the first conviction and everything else? Because back to the naivety. What do? If you don't know this stuff, they use it against you when they're offering plea bargains and everything else. So back to the present situation. So I go back, take the last plea bargain, and they say, okay, and I go up in front of the judge and I take what's called an Alford plea. An Alford plea is where you're maintaining your innocence, but you're accepting it because of the fear of what may happen. And I do my time. I get out. I'm finished with all ties to the state in January of 2002. I work myself crazy, as in follow the rules, keep my head down pretty much. You know, like most citizens, we don't want nobody bothering us. We just keep our head down. So I get out the very weekend I get out of prison, which is because I had 90 days parole. That's when I set all ties. But if I got out, I oddly enough, September 26th of 2001 to the date. So I get out that weekend. I go to the church I start going to, meet with the pastor, laid out my background, told him everything. I said, look, I want to start going here. And the reason why is because the chaplain that I was in prison with was of that denomination. And I said, I'm going to start coming here. And I set everything down. And he said, that'll be fine. And they treated me like I belonged there. And I was there every time the doors opened, real involved in the church. And back to January 2002, I got done with all ties to the state, done with parole. Everything was great. And I start working. God starts opening doors in my life. The state pays for me to get my CDLs to become a commercial truck driver. And I start driving. And I can see where God has directed my path every step of the way. I've seen him force me out of jobs to move me somewhere else. I mean, he almost bankrupted a company one time to get me to leave that company. And I was telling my present wife, I said, I think God's wanting me to leave here, but I just don't know. He almost bankrupted that company to get me to leave. But because of my job, I met my present wife, had my daughter, had my stepson, and this is my family. And now all that's being ripped away from us because of my past. Nothing else. Nobody's called in and said, oh, my God, he's beat his kids. Oh, my God, he's not feeding the kids. Nobody is saying nothing. Simply because I followed the rules and moved to New York, got in the system, they are trying to take our children.
And just to be clear, Brian, and ladies and gentlemen, this is what happened when he was following the rules. When he moved to Ellenville, New York, you checked in with the police department, like you're supposed to, and said, look, I'm a sex offender.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I'm checking in, letting you know this is who I am, this is where I live, this is where I work, and all this, everything you're required to do, you did.
That's right.
And this is and this is where the horror, in my view, the horror really, I mean, the horror really begins. But
it's bad enough, and it's like I've told everybody. God forbid that my conviction does not get overturned, even though I have the proof now, okay? But like Paul in the Bible, he had his thorn in the flesh. Without God, I couldn't have made it all these years. He's the one that's kept me strong enough to fight the battles that I fight. Because, think about it, people don't care about people like me. People think that we should be just thrown off to the side somewhere and never discussed, never looked at. We run around in fear, worrying about the boogeyman around the corner because the media tells us they're there, but we don't even know if they're really there. We don't realize that when you look at the population of criminals, if you want to look at it that way, what is their recidivism rates? Next to murder rates, sex offenders have the lowest recidivism rates of committing new sex crimes. Drunk drivers have a higher recidivism rate. Thefts, robberies, everything is higher than sex offenders. New York has a 3.7 recidivism rate. There are studies done on that. Connecticut just put one out last year that was 2.7% for new sex crimes. This thing has gotten so bad. In Wisconsin last year, they charged a 6-year-old with felony sexual assault for doing what kids do when they're little, playing doctor.
Right.
Now, how are these so-called laws that they're trying to pass to protect children? One, who's protecting my children from these people? Who is protecting that 6-year-old from the system that is now going to put them on a list? And then I saw an article the other day where they're trying to pass laws that if a sex offender is attending a school, and yes, I'll give them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt, but I know better. It's for colleges that they're to let everybody know they're there. It won't be just for colleges. It'll be for the 10-year-old that took a picture of his friend, and yes, this is a true story, taking a leak behind the tree. And they charged that 10-year-old with child porn. Or the 13-year-old girl, and this is a true story, that took a topless picture of herself and is charged with child porn. And now she's on the sex offender list till she's 25 or 30. This will devastate their lives.
Well, and good point. But how this, to me, I was horrified when you told me this. Tell our listeners what happened after you were upfront, honest, went to the Ellenville, New York Police Department and said, this is who I am and where I live.
Oh, you're talking about at the motel?
Well, just about the posters and about the hotel as well.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, the hotels, when I moved into the state, the hotel freaked out and said, no, he's got to leave, and basically kicked me out. My family kicked us all out. The company put me up in a motel, so that moved me to Ellenville. Once I got in the system on June 8th, the police department put flyers up everywhere. They put them in the McDonald's, the Subway, light poles. The school made copies of the flyers and mailed them to every single parent in the county that had students there.
with your name and your picture,
with
and your address.
Our address, where my stepson goes to school.
Right.
Now, if this is supposed to be for children's safety, again, I tell you, who's protecting my children? This is not about children's safety.
Okay. And the reason, folks, this is so important is because this is a growing tactic in the United States. And if you think that you're immune from it, think again. But
you're not.
You're not. So
you're not immune from it. How many of the parents out there that's listening have their children and know what they talk about online? We monitor every keystroke our stepson makes online. There's programs out there to do that.
Sure.
One of those is called Refog. It will take screenshots, capture every web address, every keystroke. With all these internet laws they're trying to pass. Not only that, before these internet laws let me correct myself here, I can't get it out. Before they even get passed, which they haven't yet, already you don't know where your kid is talking at and who they're talking to. They say the wrong thing on Facebook, and Facebook will rat you out, and then your kid is on the sex offender list.
Right. And folks, Brian Robertson, I'm absolutely 100% convinced, as I was with Wade Hicks, with the TSA, I'm convinced with Mr. Robertson, he is absolutely innocent of all of these allegations. He, as he pointed out, he was naive, and he attempted to go along with the system at the time and thought, well, I'll just take the easy way out, if you will. And I know that's not really an accurate.
I'll speak from experience when dealing with police. I've been, brought to the police station a few times and told I was guilty of something I didn't commit, and to the point where they didn't care about the guilt or innocence. They figured they had their person without any evidence, and basically said, we're gonna charge you, or you're gonna, and this is the way it's gonna go. And knowing better, I said no, obviously, but people can and do get scared and worried and confused, and the duress thing is real. The tactics they use are real, and they don't care about your guilt or innocence. They care about closing their cases.
Right, but to think about the horrific. I mean, how horrible was it for you after being upfront, honest, Brian, with the police department, to learn or to walk into a Subway or a McDonald's and see your picture and your name and your address for everyone to see out there? I mean,
hey. It was like this. Once those flyers went up all over town, I didn't do business in town.
You couldn't, almost. I mean,
it's not that I couldn't. It's how do you maintain a resemblance of being a human being when you're looked at a certain way? I've worked hard to get where I'm at. We're a single-income family. We have one car. Me and my wife, when we move into a state, we have already researched the laws to find out what is expected of my background. So we know. So what we would do was go to a neighboring town and do our shopping, or a neighboring county and do our grocery shopping, because people will look at you like you're a leper from the time of Christ. I have a saying I've told people, and I tell people, I said, I am the leper during the time of Jesus. I am the Jew in Nazi Germany. I am the black man after the abolition of slavery. I am the woman that wore the scarlet letter. I am the sex offender of the day. Society always needs people to ostracize because it makes them feel better. They just don't realize what they're sowing, and what you sow, you reap. Everybody's talking about their rights are being destroyed. The problem is, if you're allowing my rights to be destroyed, guess what? Your rights are being destroyed also. It goes both ways.
Well, of course. And look, I'll be honest with you and with the listeners. If you were guilty, if if I had found, or you admitted to me, or there was documentation to prove, or even even by my standards in this case, because I would put this not any reasonable doubt, but a preponderance of evidence when it comes to child abuse or child pedophilia or any type of those accusations. If I thought you were guilty, I would have a different approach to this. But knowing what I know now after looking through all of the documentation, folks, this guy did not do anything. In fact, as he stated, he's got documentation to prove that the original charges from which all of the other charges stem were bogus. So this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a system that it's out of control. It's not self-correcting, and more than that, worse than that, it's you're looking at a situation that is unforgiving, and I don't know. I think it's incredible. We're going to take a break, Brian, but when we come back, you can relate what's going on right now with your wife. This is a situation that's evolving in real time, and I think people need to know exactly what's taking place and how your life can be adversely affected tonight. Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann Report. Today is the 22nd day of January 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann, along with my co-host Joe Hagmann. We'll be right back after this message. Stay with us.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's canadafreepress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eileen Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at canadafreepress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth squads specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies at work right there in your neighborhood: KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
hold on to your seat. The Hagmann and Hagmann flight is now taking off. Doug and Joe Hagmann have cleared the runway of TSA agents, jihadists, political crackpots, and global elitists. Now get ready for some real news. Here they are, Doug and Joe Hagmann.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this Tuesday, January 22nd, 2013. We're going to get right back into what who we were talking with before, Mr. Brian Robertson, and we got a few announcements. Tomorrow night we have a schedule change from 9 p.m. until 12 p.m., midnight. We're going to have Steve Quayle on, and we're going to be talking about Genetic Armageddon is Here. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with Steve Quayle's book, Genetic Armageddon, was written years ago, over 5, 7 to 10 years ago. A lot of the things that were written in that book we are seeing coming true today. We have things like the wireless light data transmissions and the manipulation of the food, anything from the food to the humans to manipulation of our atmosphere, weather, and all these things that are happening as they are changing our society and playing God through their different scientific mechanisms that they have created. And with that, you were back?
Yeah. Sorry about that. In fact, as we were doing this program, or doing this segment, we received a call from a source very, very close to these types of cases. And Brian, I did not talk with the source about your case before, but he said, and I was not aware of this, and I'm so glad that he was able to chime in on this. He wanted me to mention this to you, and of course to the listening audience. Back when your troubles first began, around 1995, the federal government began providing cities and counties and prosecutors and such with matching funds, okay, to go after or to get convictions for child anybody accused of child abuse in any way, shape, or form. So there's a financial motive there that began around 1995, 1994, 95, 96, where, for example, if you were in North Carolina, wherever you might have been, it would be financially advantageous for the prosecutor to get a conviction. It could be you, or it could be John Smith, or whatever. It doesn't matter. But so there was a financial incentive, and there still is a financial incentive to get a conviction for child abuse of any kind against you. And there's also the other side of this, which I was not aware of, where the federal government, and this is still going on, where the federal government, once they have a successful conviction, they're able to take the children from the households of the accused and place them in households, minority households. And by minority households, we're talking homosexual couples. So there's multiple sides to this. You've got the matching funds for the successful prosecution. And then you've got and by the way, that means if you start out in North Carolina and end up 3 states later in New York, well, you take all 3 states or 4 states or 5 states, however many states you've been to, every place that you land or you live in or wherever, they're receiving these matching funds. So think about that, folks. And also, like the source said, and the documentation for this, by the way, is forthcoming, the motivation is to take the children out of the home and place them in the homes of minorities, which also includes homosexual households. So think about that. That's just incredible.
Well, think about this. I told you earlier there was an article my wife found about 3 months ago in Sullivan County, the county right next door. There was an emergency article. All you got to do is type into whatever search engine, Google if you want to, Sullivan County emergency foster homes. You'll find the articles. They said they need 40 foster families immediately in this article. And I said, you got to be kidding. 40 foster families? That means they've taken bare minimum 80 too many children. You want to tell me all those families were bad?
Well, that's a good point. I mean, statistically, I'm sure there are issues. It's this. So, and I've seen some of the comments. Well, it's most people accused are in fact guilty. No, that's not necessarily the case. Not at all. And especially after you allowing me access to the most intimate details of your life and then the legal documentation and the timelines and such, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this gentleman is for real. He got caught up back in '95 as a young man, just on the wrong side with the wrong advice, doing the wrong thing, and it just progressed badly from that. So from there. And that's by the way, interesting. You should say that an emergency need for, would you say, you said 40, right? 40
foster families.
Okay.
That means what? On top of the ones they already had, they needed 40 more.
That's right. Okay.
And they don't put just one kid in a family. They put anywhere from 1 to 6, depending on the room.
That's true. Okay. That's very true. So, wow, that's incredible. All right, now, Brian, something's going on tonight in New York. Right now, as we speak, we don't know the resolution, but this could affect.
It's over.
Sure, if you don't mind sharing with the audience what happened.
Do you want me to bring them up to date first on all the events that led up to the night?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, the last thing I was talking about was the poster campaign all over town. I was a famous rock star. On June 12th, DSS came to the house, said there was an allegation. The only allegation, and I have this recorded, and Mr. Hagmann has the recording, where the DSS admitted it. The only allegation was defined as other. In the DSS manual, on page 56 of the appendices, the allegation of other is a level 2 or 3 recently released, arrested, convicted sex offender living in the home with a minor child under the age of 18 not having treatment. Okay? That was it. Sex Offender Management gave the DSS my information. Sex Offender Management is run by the Attorney General's office. They give the agencies your information, and DSS, the little hound dogs, love to take kids, so what do? Try to take ours that day. But I took my family to Pennsylvania to her mom and dad's, so that way my kids were safe. Right? So we've been through an 8.5-month nightmare. I have not seen my kids, so I've missed all that time with my daughter growing up. My stepson, graduating the 8th grade, didn't even get to attend his graduation, and I cried over that. And now he's in the 9th grade, and I'm missing out on all this stuff. So over the process of time, I discovered, wait a minute here, the neglect petitions they filed in court, they absolutely bald-faced lied. They filed false neglect petitions in the court, which is a criminal act, and nobody up here in Ulster County will do anything to stop it, and Judge Anthony McGinty is allowing it because I've called him on it and proven that it's illegal. You cannot put anything you want on paper and say it's legal when you know otherwise and have no proof to the contrary.
That's right.
So what did they do? They have filed contempt papers on me and my wife, or my wife, okay, because the first one was on us both. The second was on her. And they use this tactic. they'll tell you something's ordered, but then DSS will not follow through with the orders. And then they'll file the contempt papers, go up in front of the judge, and the judge knows what's going on. September 7th, they ordered us to give the medical records. I objected. I said, wait a minute here. There's a federal mandate. What you were saying about federal money, here's the deal. When you take your kids to the doctor, which I don't know if you've heard the stories today, but now they're talking about asking for guns, and actually that happened to my mother-in-law when she went to the doctor one time, if I remember correctly. If by federal mandate, if they suspect any kind of neglect or abuse, your pediatrician, your family doctor has to, by law, report it. I told the judge that in the room. I said, you don't need the medical records by law, federal mandate. He says, well, I know New York law that's true, but I don't know about Pennsylvania, so he'd give them the medical records. Okay, they never sent the releases for me and my wife to sign as by law under HIPAA. We didn't necessarily know that. We thought because the judge ordered it, everything was fine. We didn't need to sign it. They never went and got it. So they filed contempt papers, blamed all our attorneys, and then the judge to have our kids examined for and interviewed for sexual abuse. Remember, I told you earlier, no allegation of anything. So DSS is ripping our family to pieces, okay? We didn't take them. Never got an order from the judge in writing, which is a violation of Article 2, Section 217 of the Family Court Act in New York, where the judge's order for medical exams has to have his signature and or his initials. That was never done, so we didn't take them. Well, they filed contempt papers. This time the judge says, look, I'm going to file papers. You're going to bring them, or I'm going to arrest your wife and take your children. That wasn't his exact way of putting it, but that's what he said. Okay? So my wife tonight had to take my kids and subject my kids to be abused by DSS, and it's supposedly over.
All right. Now, throughout today, we talked throughout today with in prayer that this was going to be resolved favorably. I take it from what you indicated, the way you sounded, that there's not a favorable resolution to this.
Oh no, well, we won't know if it's favorable. If I don't go to jail, then we know it's favorable. These people lie. They've proven to us they'll lie. They told us on June 12th, we're not trying to split your family. We're not trying to take your kids. What did they do on June 12th? I asked the court to take our kids. Okay? What did they do on October 31st? Sit up there in front of the judge and lie to his face and said, oh, it was their lawyer's job to get the medical records, not ours. There are so many lies that they told us and everybody else, and they get away with it because why? Nobody will do anything. I've had to fight these people the whole time because my lawyer, you got the recording where he admits it's illegal. Where what? Oh, I can't do nothing. The public defender office won't allow it.
Right. In fact, let me play that right now. I think that's important for people. I think this is important for people to hear. This is you and your attorney discussing that very fact. Here it is right here.
Michael Masteri.
Now, either there is a law known as defending me. If there is a criminal act that's been done, that's part of the defense.
Right. I have to get their opinion as to whether it's a criminal act. I think they would agree with you if it was a clear criminal act.
Well, against my wife, it is.
Against your wife, it is, yes.
Okay, then.
But I represent your wife, yes.
No, you represent me. Because if hers goes away, mine does too. Because if hers is never there, guess what? Minimum degree of care. So that means what? As representing me, you can go after that.
That's we made it valid.
It's either valid or it's not. It ain't no may. You give me legalese all you want, but I'm smarter than the average person.
No, you are. I'm not trying to get the legalese on this. I'm just saying I just got to sit on my thoughts a little bit. Can we?
There you have it. I mean, that disturbed me a little bit when I heard that, the cavalier attitude by your own attorney.
Oh, they shut me down today. I sent you the link to the 25-minute video. They shut me down today. His supervisor didn't want to talk to me. I could not record it because they were in another office. But they absolutely will not do anything to stop DSS from their criminal acts. Jennifer Allen, you have the transcripts right there. You can attest to this. She admitted on the stand the house was clean, kids are healthy. Pennsylvania sent in the report when they checked on the kids. Hey, kids are healthy, nothing wrong. We don't see what you're doing. So Pennsylvania closed the case. Jennifer Allen asked the judge to make Pennsylvania continue the investigation. Judge said no. They're mad because Pennsylvania won't. They sit there and admit on the stand that, oh, the inadequate guardianship against my wife, leaving him alone with the kids. No, we don't have any proof. We just don't know that it hasn't happened.
Beautiful.
So when you say, is it over? No, I don't believe it's over unless I don't go to jail. My wife told me, she says, look, I hope I got it recorded. I hope it was loud enough. But the doctor tonight examined my daughter and said, I'm going to tell them nothing happened. I don't buy it. They did it to me in the second case where they got up there and said, oh, well, it looks like something might have happened. We can't tell what or when, and that's what I'm expecting. So that's why I told you. If you don't hear from me by tomorrow night or Thursday, you know they've arrested me and my wife for abuse of my daughter when nothing's happened.
Because you haven't seen your children for, as you said, 8.5 months.
Yeah, June 12th, when I took my daughter and my son to Pennsylvania and my wife, that's the last time I've been able to see my children.
All right. So, Brian, when you first approached me, I mean, and throughout the last week and a half, you supplied me with a lot of information. You've certainly attempted to make your case known, your situation known to many other people. I mean,
yep.
What kind of response have you gotten?
Absolutely ignored. I've been chasing media and attorneys. I went to everybody you can think of, and trust me, your phone number was not easy to find. But like you heard in that recording, I'm smarter than the average person. I finally found your number about, I think it was almost 4 weeks ago. And I found it, and I called you. And it took me a few phone calls to finally get you, and you answered the phone, and I said, oh, I recognize that voice.
Yeah.
And I told you what was going on, and you heard me break down and cry, and you said, look, send me everything you sent to Ben Swan. I said, okay, because Ben Swan has seen it and ain't willing to do anything. Nobody's been willing to touch this, and I've been putting it all over the Internet, been putting it, emailing media, calling media. I actually had a media place tonight said, oh, we won't do stories against DSS. I said, so you're going to allow them to do things that are openly criminal to my family, and you don't care? And that was Fox News. So all those people that love Fox News and swear they're conservative and for the people, no, they're not.
What about alternative sites? Alternative media. Have you gone to any alternative media aside from ours?
Oh, yeah. I haven't. Shoot, you wouldn't know the extent of what I've had to do to get somebody to pay attention. I've sent emails to the InfoWars. I've called them. I've left voicemails on every extension at their business office. Now, I'm not demonizing Alex. I don't know if he's gotten anything. I know they get thousands of emails a day, and they're going to miss things. So I'm not saying he's a bad person because I really believe in Alex. But I have not. I posted on his Facebook. I posted everywhere. Cannot get a response from nobody.
Yeah, and certainly I'm not either. I guess the one of the biggest things, the biggest hurdles, in my view, one of the biggest hurdles that I think people have to get over is the fact that just because you're accused, or you're just because you're classified as someone who, what am I trying to say here? Help me out. There's a stigma attached to your classification, obviously.
Just a leper.
Right. You know, when I first heard, when you first told me about your situation, man, I approached it with an abundance of caution. In fact, it took me a long time. I sifted through everything that you provided to me. And then, you know, the exculpatory evidence, the fact that that was never turned over to me, that's that's illegal, and it's unforgivable. But it just, to me, it surprises me. We have so many people out there who say, well, let's fight the system, or let's help beat the system. But no one does a doggone thing.
Well, here's
no one
the
wants
deal.
to take on the job.
Yeah, well, here's something you got to think about. My wife, on her Facebook account, she put an updated thing of events on a group that she's part of. It's a private group, right? She said, everybody give me your opinion, because there's a lot of people in that group that knows what's going on. And here's the thing that absolutely amazes me. What has happened to Americans? Where has the red-blooded Americans went to? Because most of these people were saying what? Well, yeah, it's corrupt what they're doing, but you really got to follow the rules or they're going to take your kids. That's it. What happened to Americans that when corruption happens, you tell them, no, we're going to fight? Because that's what I've been doing this whole time. I've had to fight these people pretty much by myself. My wife has helped in the background. Okay, she has helped me do some research and read some documents. But I've had to write motions myself because my lawyer absolutely denied to do a motion to dismissal. I had to file it myself, and boy, did I get the judge's attention, because he realized real quick I'm not no dummy. I've read Supreme Court cases on this stuff. I've read 125 New York court cases that span 10 years. Here is the big picture. And everybody that's listening, if you're in New York and you have a family that has a sex offender in the family, New York tried it in the matter of Afton C. They're trying it here. My case is the absolute perfect case for New York to get their way, because they are trying to get the legal precedent that just my mere presence is enough in the home to take my kids. If they get that with me, every sex offender that lives in the state of New York is in danger of losing their kids. Not only that, if they do it to sex offenders, how long before that case precedent, if you want to bring it close to home and personal, now that they're treating gun owners like sex offenders, how long before they say the same thing to gun owners, because you're as bad as a sex offender, now we're going to take your kids. See, this thing don't just stop with us. This thing goes, you know how the government works. The government will take case law and build their case out. They got an agenda. It ain't about kids' safety.
No, it's not.
To be losing. And you've already seen the article just the other day where there was proposed legislation to start making a public registry for gun owners. Hey, guess what? Nobody stood up for the sex offenders back in the 90s. So guess what? They're going to make everybody on a public list. It's going to happen. If you allow it to one group of people, it's going to happen to everybody.
That's very well said. And I'm sure I can hear the arguments, you know, the mental arguments, because I know people in my family, not my immediate family, but my extended family, who have been victims themselves of abuse. It's a very, very difficult subject to talk about, and of course there's that stigma attached to just being accused of child abuse in any way, shape, or form. So it's a difficult situation all around.
If you want to know how bad things really are, you should really go do a search. It's called You Are a Sex Offender If. I cannot off the top of my head remember the website. And it's a guy that's in Texas. He is on the registered sex offender list. He's an activist. He's been in the media and stuff like that. He's got a page dedicated to news articles. He's got a news article where a husband and wife, how many of you parents out there that's had kids where the husband took a picture of your wife breastfeeding? You cannot see the nipple, but the baby's breastfeeding. Me and my wife's got a picture of Lillian that way. They charged them with child pornography, and they're both on the sex offender list. And if my memory serves me correct, CPS tried to take their kids.
Exactly.
See,
and yeah.
They're putting women for breastfeeding in public on the sex offender list, at least making an effort. See, this thing does not stop just because they say somebody molested a child.
Right. It's the numerous doors that are being opened here. It's incredible. But one thing that struck me in closing here, because we're going to have to cut you loose here, but Brian, one thing that struck me was what you said about your faith, how your faith has been carrying you through. I admire you for putting your faith in God. I know that people scoff, and as an investigator, I would say, there's everyone finds Jesus in jail, but in your case, you were a lot more genuine. I mean, to me, to listen to your story of salvation or turning your life over to Christ struck me as not only genuine, but basically it just astounded me. And if you want to share with the audience that very intimate moment, feel free to do so. If you feel that you want to share that.
That's no problem. Like I said, September 26, 97, I got real with God, and He became real to me. I told my mom when I was in jail, if they're not for God, they're not for me. And God has turned my life upside down ever since. It's been one roller coaster ride after another, but I can look back and see everywhere God has directed my path. The people I've met, I've had people tell me later, you don't know how much you've affected my life, because I speak about the things y'all talk about everywhere I go. And God's given me the ability to relate everything to the Bible. And I ain't nobody special. Look at me. I'm the outcast of society. But God sees something in me that I still don't see. I'm like, why me? But you know what? He's done so much for me that I have a roof over my head. My kids are fed. My wife, she's been the absolute best thing that ever happened to me. And we have the average marriage. We don't always get along, but there is nothing I would not sacrifice for my family, even to my own life if I had to. And the thing that makes me sad is I hear all these people out there talk about liberty, but when it comes to our liberties, nobody will touch it. So all I have is God. And if it wasn't for you, Doug, this wouldn't be going out tonight. I mean,
well,
you can't get nobody to do anything, and I can't even go to church. If I wasn't working Sunday, because I've tried to find churches, they treat you like you're an outcast at church. They want to chaperone you everywhere. They want to limit the insurance companies that govern churches says, oh, now you can only allow them to go to one church service. I said, when are we going to start opening up to people that genuinely want to believe and trust in God and change their lives, even if they are guilty?
I thought you said that you found a church that you could deal with, or you could.
I did, but that was in North Carolina.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They treated me. It took me a while to earn their trust, and I did everything that I was supposed to do. My pastor Rick at that church said, he said, man, I've never seen a man like the faith this man has. And he's been a pastor for a while, and that was told to me secondhand, not directly. I had to ask him about it. And I said, Rick, I have no choice. There's no way I could survive this life with what I have to carry every day without God. There's no way. To know how people look at me and treat me, and now knowing this that we are going through when my family has been torn to pieces.
Wow. Brian, look, you've got my admiration. You know, and folks, the short time that we spent with Brian here does not even do justice to the documents that I've seen, I've read, I've gone through, that represent just, in my view, a lifetime of misery. And I mean that, a lifetime of misery, because you really, from day one have been victimized. And I got to say, you know,
but the thing is, I sleep good at night. I go to bed. God, when He says in the Word what, He'll bring you that peace and that joy. I sleep good at night. If you're not having peace, He's the only one that can give you that. Even with all this turmoil, He's carrying me. Even with all of this, He's protected me. He's protected my family. I mean, just like the week or two before this event happened, my office came to me and said, we need to change your days off. Okay, I was normally off on a Thursday and Friday, but God knew what was coming. Because if they hadn't changed my days off, New York would have took my kids, because on June 12th, on a Tuesday, DSS was on my doorstep to take my kids, and God changed the dates. He touched those people in the office, said, look, we need somebody to drive New York City on Thursday and Friday. I said, okay, I don't care as long as I get my back-to-back days. So they changed Tuesday and Wednesday, and thank God, because I was able to take my wife and kids to Pennsylvania. If I had been at work that day, they would have taken my children.
Wow.
God has done things in my life. There's no explanation. You can't say it's coincidence.
No, especially not in this case. Not from what I've seen, not from what I've read, not from what you've related. Now, I've got to tell you, folks, I got to tell you, you know, it's very humbling to have or to listen to the information, the narrative of someone, and have a man sob, cry, and say, you know, I'm at my wit's end here. There's no one who will listen to me. There's no one who will help. There's, you know, aside from God, my belief in God, that's the only thing that's carrying me forward. Of course, I got to tell you, Brian, and even now, even tonight, not knowing what tomorrow will bring, whether you know, you will be arrested, and perhaps you can explain that. You had mentioned. And with this, we can let you go. But you mentioned, well, you know, you could be arrested tomorrow. You don't know. I mean, explain that to the listeners.
Well, the reason why I say that, let me give you the update first. She said, my wife sent me a message because they're sitting down to eat. You know, it's kind of hard to eat under the circumstances. So I said, okay. My wife said, by the way, the doctor said the lady did not understand why they were doing this. And because she explained to them there was never an allegation. Okay? So the doctor, if she sticks to her story, which she said that she was going to tell them, there's nothing there to show that there's anything been done. But the problem is, like I said, and listeners, y'all have only seen part of the examples of the lies. Dean has got a lot more. We've only scratched the surface. It will not surprise me a bit that if they don't put in their report to submit that something along the lines of, well, something could have happened, we can't really tell when. Yeah, we know he hasn't seen his kids in 8.5 months, but it's all right. There's something there, and that's all it'll take. They will charge my wife with felony child abuse. They will lock me up and throw away the key, and they will take our kids. And there ain't nothing nobody in our family can do to stop it, because my in-laws have even tried to take custody for the simple reason to protect the kids. It would have been temporary, and the lawyers in Pennsylvania said, you got to go to New York and petition the court. There's nothing we can do. And New York, with all the stuff the judge is allowing in Ulster County Family Court, and DSS committing all the crimes they're committing, even if they do stick to their story and say nothing happens, they want the legal precedent to say it's enough to grab kids. This is not over, even if they don't or make up false allegations and arrest us. This is not over. Pam Jorn, the DSS attorney, one day I looked at Melissa Roach, which Melissa Roach is the preventative case manager. I looked at her after court one day, and I said, you don't call us no more. You call our attorneys. I said, y'all think it's all right to violate our rights when nothing has happened? And Pam Jorn, I wish I could have recorded it, but, you can't do that in court. She said, well, you had rights till you became a sex offender.
Yeah. Well, that says a lot. Now, of course, we understand the loss of rights. When you become a felon, you lose certain rights and privileges. We understand that. However, this case, you've got to understand, folks, that this is quite a bit different, especially given the situation, given the fact that the exculpatory evidence existed and continues to exist and is there for anyone to see. It's an incredible story. It really is. Which is why, Brian, and I want to thank you for coming on and telling your story, because and you're right, this is only such a small part of what's going on, and the glimpse into the this government run amok, this jobs program, if you will. As I mentioned, this jobs program for public defenders and prosecutors, and matching funds from the feds. It's incredible. And of course,
yeah, and what are they doing? They're controlling the public defenders that they can't even properly defend their clients. Like my attorney said, which when you listen to that 25-minute interview today, he absolutely says unequivocally that the office will not allow him to do anything, period. Even though he's admitted it's illegal, they will not let him do anything.
Right, and I saw that. I saw the on the timeline, or maybe it was from my notes after our discussion. It's so much information here. How is it possible? How is it possible for an attorney to be not, or for the public defender not allowed? How is it possible that public defender is not allowed to file a complaint?
Because the reason why they're not allowed, this was his excuse, Doug. His excuse is this: that under his contract, he is not allowed to do that because they will not cover him under malpractice insurance. So if he was to get sued by the individuals that work for the DSS, he wouldn't be covered. Okay? So they lock him up financially, which, what does that mean? No competent counsel. Because if he's admitted it's illegal, he has an ethical obligation to go to the grand jury. I've went to the district attorney's office. I went to the police department, told them what I got, and I've been shut down. The DA says, I'm not going to let you do that. I told him, I said, I got the audio recordings. He said, I don't want to hear it.
And you know, it just reminds me of the opening of our program, taken from the movie And Justice for All. You know, this is the kind of system in which we are operating, and this is the government that's out of control, and this is what is taking place right now in unbelievable frequency, and it's to me it's just incredible, especially when you see the injustices that are involved in this case, Brian. I commend you for coming forward.
Well, here's something I told you today. I had an attorney in Albany, went and seen him, had a friend get in touch with him, and the guy said, okay, I want to see him. Went up there, we explained everything, showed him documents. He said, you're getting railroaded. I said, yeah, I know. He says, the justice system is broken. Now, I'm paraphrasing because it was a longer conversation than that. He said, the justice system is broken, but this is a free market system, and I need between $15,000 and $25,000, and in a matter of a couple months, your case will be over with. What I should have told him is the reason why the justice system is broken is because you're not willing to fight for people when you openly know what's being done is illegal. That's why the justice system is broken.
But see, if you would have ponied up the money, then it would be fine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So justice is defined by how much money or how much you're willing to pay. I guess you can.
Yeah.
That's
absolutely no. It is. Why do you think all the criminals get away with everything like the bankers? Because they own the money.
That's a very good analogy. Very good. Well, Brian,
we know they're destroying our economy by criminal acts, but nobody will do nothing because they own the money. So yeah.
Yeah. It's to me. This is folks. Again, you have to understand how deep this is, how deep this goes, how intense this whole situation's been. Here's a guy who's lived it for the last 20 years, and certainly if you want to ascribe some blame to him for being naive and young and stupid and saying, okay, all right, I'll take the plea, whatever, I'll confess, but under duress, but it was bad advice. And by that simple stroke of a pen, that decision, that simple decision, that simple decision, I shouldn't. That it really wasn't simple, but that one moment in time that has caused you 20 years of grief, and knowing that there's evidence out there, exculpatory evidence out there that could put this, shut this down, take away the original charge, everything, and no one's willing to do a doggone thing about it. To me, it's unforgivable, and to see the intensity over the last 20 years, folks, you've got to understand how big this is.
Well, here's the one thing I never forget. Even the people that I've met in all these states that know my background, they've asked me the same thing, how do you do it? But the thing I got to say all the time is look at Joseph in the Bible. What happened to him? He would be on the sex offender list. But guess what? What did God, he allowed it to happen. What did it do? It brought me to him.
That's true.
I can't really be totally angry. I could be running around here angry and spiteful because how much I've been screwed by the system. Why? It brought me to Christ.
Well, that's one way.
That's my only way, because he's preeminent. He's all there is.
I got to tell you, Brian, it's just an amazing story, and I will say this: we're going to be following what the county of Ulster does, just because we know we've got people from Ulster County listening tonight. Department of Social Services in Kingston, New York. We know, or I want those people to know up there that we're going to be watching very closely what happens here with Mr. and Mrs. Brian Robertson and his family, and we really are going to be keeping a close eye on this situation. We're going to be in contact with Mr. Earlist. I'll be in contact with Mr. Robertson here pretty much consistently over the next week, on a daily basis,
to make sure he's been arrested.
Yes, and until we can arrive at some sort of resolution of this, because your life is still turned upside down. You're still unable to live as a family until this is resolved.
That's right. By the way, you got all their phone numbers, because I sent you that on the motions I filed. So you've got every lawyer, every person's phone numbers, except for Melissa Roach. I think I'll have to email you that.
Well, yeah, it's I do, but just to put the people from the county of Ulster, the Department of Social Services, on notice, of course, and we're talking about Nancy DeFeo, the case supervisor, Suzanne Ferry. We have your information, and we will be watching, and we're going to do everything we can to see that there's some sort of resolution so this man can get his life back together. Yeah. I want to thank you, Brian, for sharing all of this information. I hope that by exposing this, that we've done a little bit in advancing a resolution to your situation, because it really hurt me. I was really hurt that no one would really take a look at your case, evaluate and do anything for you.
Well, the thing is this: you got to realize there's a lot of people that may not agree with my views on some things, but you've read a lot of the same studies I have, and I know how DSS operates. Whether you think vaccines are great or not, she has not had a shot since day one. Never a one. And if DSS gets my daughter and gives her almost 3 years' worth of vaccines at one time, and Doug, you know as well as I do, don't put it past them.
Oh, yeah.
That many shots at one time will kill my daughter more than likely. So, yeah, I've been desperate for 8 months because I know what they'll do.
Yeah, and folks, that's another aspect we did not talk about, the fact that, Mr. and Mrs. Robertson, their position on vaccinations, that as parents, as responsible parents, how that plays into this whole picture. You don't think, folks, that has something to do with all of this? Of course it does. Mr. Robertson's a vocal opponent of vaccines. Again, you don't think that's part of this? Of course it is. It's part of the agenda. And as you very astutely mentioned earlier, the template is the same. This is how it was in Nazi Germany. And here we go. I mean, the parallels are just numerous. So, Brian, I want to thank you again. We're going to cut you loose. You just keep in touch. We'll be in touch. We're going to be following this up close and personal. I'm going to be certainly getting this information out as well in print form with on our website and others, Canada Free Press as well. And we're going to be shining the spotlight onto the very people who are trying to rip your family apart.
Well, I thank you, brother, and it really means more than you will ever know.
Well, you just keep faith in God, and I just want to say thank you very much for sharing. I know it was difficult. I know it's difficult when you're innocent, and I mean innocent, yet accused. It's difficult because people will look at you and say, well, if he's accused, there must be something there, and he confessed, so there's got to be, there's got to be something there. I understand that prejudice going in. I understand that mindset. So it takes a lot for a person, meaning you, to come out and say, I made a mistake, I'm innocent, and of course this is where I'm at now. So what a story. And this should serve as a warning for all Americans listening to this, of what could very well happen to you, or if not you, certainly to a member of your family. Brian, I want to thank you very much for joining us, and we will be in touch. God bless, man.
You too.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome. Bye.
So there you have it. And Joe, this is only just one small part. What you heard is only a small part, only the tips of the icebergs, numerous icebergs floating out there.
Yeah, and I was quiet through the interview because I didn't hear a lot of this. I didn't see the information, and I just wanted to listen and hear what he had to say. And
the implications are staggering.
Well, yeah. And aside from his case, what they are doing with the new Obamacare laws and the gun legislation that they've passed through executive order and the other things they're trying to get passed, and tying it into the mental health issue, everything seems to be centered around this Obamacare mental health issue, where they can get to your bank accounts, they can get to your personal information, they can get to your, how many boxes of cereal do you have in your cupboard. It's so invasive. And then to be able to decide if you have, they can create new mental illnesses and decide if you're fit based on things that have no meaning on how your children are brought up, if they're, clean and go to school, get good grades. None of that matters. It matters how they perceive you.
Right.
And it doesn't matter how well you take care of your children. And that is the sad part of the story, because, when we heard his story, he said, none of the children didn't ever accuse him, and it was the opposite. They said no, and there was no evidence, but yet they continued to pressure to the point where you have these public defenders, these lawyers that they take the easy way out. And we dealt with this a lot, where lawyers would just say, well, it's better to be safe than sorry, and plea bargain even if you didn't do it. And that happens so much more than people understand, and it's not good at all. It's not good practice for the lawyers morally. If they know that their client's stating their innocence to them, and yet they still allow them to take a plea bargain, they're doing something morally wrong, in my opinion.
Well, just real quickly, and I know this really pales in comparison to Brian's story, but I remember about 15 years ago in North Tonawanda, New York, I got stopped by a police officer for going through a red light. And I didn't realize this up in New York State, where you get stopped or you go through a red light, you go to trial. Or you brought before a judge, and you have to plead either guilty or not guilty.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I mean this, I did not go through that red light. I can guarantee you, I did not go through that red light. So when I stood in front of the judge says, guilty or not guilty. And I said, no, I'm not guilty. I did not go through the red light. He said, all right, we're going to set a jury trial starting at 2 o'clock or whatever it was. And I remember thinking, a jury trial. It was like 2 o'clock the next day or I don't know. But at any rate, it was just an incredible, surreal to think that I was going to sit, in front of a jury, have to testify in front of a jury over a traffic violation.
That's why I just don't respond to them and then don't go back to that town until the 7 years is over.
Well, when I looked at the judge, when it says the judge not guilty, I pled not guilty. He said, okay, we're going to schedule the jury trial. And I said, well, wait a minute, no, I'm not gonna do this. I'll just take fine. I'm guilty.
Yeah, take the fine.
And he said,
extortion.
Well, he said, I'm not going to have somebody in my courtroom say that they're not guilty and pay a fine if they truly feel they're not guilty. And I said, well, wait a minute. So then I've got to spend 2 days to, and get an attorney to defend myself.
To defend yourself.
Right. Which, now, if you think about that, it makes perfect sense, but you're talking about a traffic violation.
Right.
Just apply that to this gentleman, but magnify the duress and the...
Right. It'd be like they had the ability to take away your car and your license. It's terrible. And a lot of people go through it, and I've seen people in chat say that they've seen people go through it. Some people have actually gone through it themselves, and it's a terrible situation.
Yeah.
We're up against the top of the hour break. We'll be right back after these short messages. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. It's Tuesday, January 22nd, 2013. When we come back, we're going to hit news for the final hour. Big time, as we have a lot to cover. We'll be right back.
If you're stumped, you don't know what kind of gift to give to a friend or a loved one, I'm telling you, you must go to 4physics.com. That's the numeral 4, PHYSICS.com. This is your one-stop shopping palace. That's the only way I can put it. I could spend easily an hour on this website. Innovative, fun, educational. There are games, books, weather instruments, unique time-telling devices, jewelry, optical devices, laboratory equipment. Let me give you an example. We all know we can tell time with a sundial. You've seen those advertised. Did you know that you could tell time by the stars? At 4physics.com, you can buy a horologium nocturnum. This was a navigational device used in the 15th century by navigators at night to tell time by the stars. It's beautifully crafted in the shape of a pendant made of bronze and pewter or gold and silver. Absolutely a stunning gift. I would be proud to give it to anyone. You must go to 4physics.com. Even if you're not stumped, that's 4physics. That's the numeral 4, PHYSICS.com. It's your one-stop shopping palace. Any problems that you have, I don't know what to get Grandpa, I don't know what to get my loved one, that's unique, you will find it at 4physics.com. Please take my word for it. Go to the website, but give yourself a lot of time because you're not going to want to leave. 4physics.com.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com, or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the top of the third hour. We had a mix-up there. Thought we were going to have a live read, and you screwed it up. So do you have any intro?
Well, let me do that right now. I'm just out of breath. I just want to...
you got the paper over there?
I got the paper right here.
Okay. Dysfunction in the studio.
Actually, I'm out of breath, but I had to run across the studio to do something. In fact, mute us for a second.
All right, what I'm going to do is play this clip of Lawrence O'Donnell. It's only 37 seconds. It's what he said about Christians in the Bible after the inauguration.
Another episode of the Politics of Religion. The pastor who was forced to withdraw today from participation in the presidential inauguration because he said homosexuality is a sin, which of course is exactly what the Bible teaches. That very same Bible that President Obama will be holding when he takes the oath of office. Now, if you can't have an anti-gay preacher at the inauguration, why can you use an anti-gay holy book as a prop at the inauguration? Riddle me that.
Yeah, there you go. Riddle you that, Lawrence O'Donnell. You're anti-Christian. We have a caller. I want to see if this works. I'm going to bring him on and let you take care of the rest.
All right. Folks, those who listened for the last hour to the case of to the case that we were talking about with Brian Robertson.
Yeah.
The individual who contacted me during that interview has a lot of background, a lot of perspective on this and how big this is and how this can relate, how this all fits together into what's taking place today. I want to bring him on. I'm not going to identify him by name, but sir, welcome to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Can you hear me? Are we having...
He's on.
You're on. Did you mute yourself?
Yeah, I don't know. We know that Blog Talk Radio prompted us audio problems they're having with the phones. So if you can hear us, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody else can hear you either. And Skype, a way of communicating via Skype.
No.
All right, we can try and call him.
Yeah, let's. In fact, we'll do that. Did you get that number?
Well, yeah, I see it just dropped, and it says, we are experiencing issues with the call-in number. Our technical experts are working on it.
Okay, yeah.
I'm going to try and call him right now.
Meanwhile, the live read I didn't do, which is so exciting. The live read is so exciting. Folks, I just want to tell you about a sponsor of ours, Grandland Firearms of British Columbia. Now, you've heard me talk about them. If you go to their website, if you haven't been to their website yet, you got to check it out. What beautiful pictures. Grandland Firearms, located in Campbell River, British Columbia, one of the greatest area suppliers of all kinds of hunting equipment, guns, different types of weapons, full listing or full inventory of various weapons, of various survival gear. In fact, they just updated their website for their gun stock list. I would check that out right away. If you're up in Canada, you can. I'll tell you some of the prices on their weapons. Just magnificent. It would want to make me go up to Canada. And in fact, a Mossberg Maverick 12 gauge. Brand new, $269.99. Just one instance there. Also, excuse me, still trying to get over this, whatever this gunk is. But the Carl Granlund and his wife, they've been in business for over 20 years in Campbell River, British Columbia. Once again, they're the go-to place if you are in British Columbia for all kinds of hunting gear, rifles, so on, pellet guns, ammunition, reloading supplies. You need it, they've got it. Anything a hunter needs, they've got it. So pay them a visit if you're up in British Columbia. If not, visit them at GranlundFirearms.com. That's GranlundFirearms.com. If you can't go up there physically, certainly go up there virtually. And while you're there, sign their guest book and tell them Doug and Joe Hagmann sent you. That's GranlundFirearms.com.
All right. Now, it wouldn't let us call him, but if he's listening, 321-252-8941. You can call that number, and Troy from Christians United Broadcasting will answer and connect you and put you right through to us. It's 321-252-8941. As Blog Talk is going haywire here, saying that you can't have international calls. And, well, we'll leave it at that. But anyway,
yeah,
while we're getting him connected, hopefully you heard that. I want to play this bit from Ben Swan talking about the hypocrisy of what Obama did with the gun legislation, executive orders versus the drone strikes.
It is a subject the national media, quite simply, are not going to talk about. Over and over during this debate about guns in America, President Obama has said that he believes that action must be taken to protect the children in this country. And he says whatever steps need to be taken, even if they're drastic or dramatic, should be taken if it means protecting just one more child. If the president believes that, does that belief extend not just to his domestic policy, but to his foreign policy as well? This is Full Disclosure. President Obama unveiled his plan for new gun control restrictions in the United States in light of the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting. The president, among other things, wants strict bans on assault weapons, on high-capacity magazines, as well as issuing 23 executive orders that he believes will help to not only protect schools and children, but will also crack down on those who he believes should not have guns. Among those 23 executive orders issued is a call for $500 million. He also wants to provide law enforcement, first responders, and school officials with proper training for active shooter situations. Launch a national safe and responsible gun ownership campaign, as he calls it. Clarify that the Affordable Care Act does not prohibit doctors asking their patients about guns in their homes, among other things. Calls by the president to see no more young children killed in these mass shootings is certainly understandable, but could be a bit confusing when you consider the fact that this president has continued a drone strike policy in the war on terror, one that has resulted in the deaths of as many as 214 children in the past 7 years. Granted, he wasn't president all of those years, but the drone strike program has only increased under President Obama. According to the Bureau for Investigative Journalism, since 2004, 176 children have been reportedly killed in just Pakistan. 27 to 35 children killed by drone strike in Yemen. And since 2007, 1 to 3 children killed in Somalia, again as a result of drone strikes. What you need to know is that the number of children killed in Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen over the past 7 years is nearly 11 times the number of children killed at Sandy Hook Elementary School. The president thought that it was fitting to issue 23 executive orders in order to prevent, he says, another one of these tragedies, even just one more child from being killed. But the fact is, the president could issue one simple order to end the deaths of children around the world by U.S. drone strike. And that is full disclosure.
All right. That's interesting stats. Now, as we were saying before, Mr. Brian Robertson narrated this horrific story that had to do with children's services and how his life is being turned upside down. To add some perspective, very important perspective, is a gentleman who I have a lot of respect for, who knows the other side of this. and I'm not going to mention him by name. He's just a very knowledgeable source. I'll bring him on. Sir, are you there?
I sure am, Doug.
All right. What can you add in terms of what Mr. Robertson had said and why we should care?
Well, this is really important to me, and of course, you know I deal with some pretty heavy stuff, but I got distracted into this back about the time that this gentleman's case came up. If you remember, when Clinton came in office, one of the things that happened was that he, like Obama, came in catering to the homosexual community to, as a voting base, as did the Democrats in general. And so because of some things that happened, I was asked on a specific case involving a child custody case to come in where a young girl who was only 13 at the time was taken from her mom at the junior high school she was going to, and was the counselor who we later, years later, found out was herself a lesbian, and the police officer who was called to the school, who was also a lesbian, and other persons, social workers, etc., that came in were all lesbians. The whole crowd of them actually wanted this particular girl, and the reason was because she had moved from a Midwestern state to a West Coast state. She had what was called a Webley Fund trust. She was born prematurely exposed to chemicals. And this Webley Fund trust, the mother had never used any of the money. She'd left it there for the daughter when she grew up and went to school. She had enough money from her business to be able to pay all the bills. It was there to cover medical expenses, and it's because she was born prematurely because the mother was exposed to chemicals prior to the birth, so she was born way early. So as part of this settlement, and Webley Fund is a big, huge, hundreds of millions of dollars settlement, anywhere that she would be treated or be in a public school or anywhere else, it has to be reported to the caregivers. It has to be reported to the school so that, let's say she needed extra tutoring to understand a subject, or she needed counseling, or she needed help with medications or anything. All the school people, all the government people know that fund's available so they can tap it to take care of this girl. Because the mother had the money, she didn't need to. So this fund, the school knows how much money's in the fund. They know she has it, and they know she's good for it. If they get control of that child, then she's like a cash cow. And anybody that has hold of her can do it. Now, this little clique wanted her because at that particular time, there was this belief that that was being pushed by some of the governors in these Western states, Western countries, that they had to balance this disproportionate situation, because now that they were recognizing that gays and lesbians are in a minority status, by executive order, they decided that they had to balance the books. So although the finding was that basically children should be placed, if they showed tendencies to be gay or lesbian or homosexual, that they should be placed with those kind of a family. These social workers interpreted it, no. Any kid, 13 years old, what are they showing? They're showing anything? No, they just grabbed them all. So literally, just every kid that came down the line was practically going to somebody in that thing, and they were doing the same type of outreach that your guest was mentioning, where they're saying, we need foster homes. We've got to have more foster homes because we just don't have enough. And because there's this urgent need for more foster homes, and there's not enough regular homes with children, or even if good people came in and they were church-going normal people, if they went to church, they aren't qualified because they have a bias. And they have a natural tendency to look down on, certain things. And we've already decided that there may be a homosexual, tendency on the part of this child, so we can't place them there. So then the counselors, the social workers, literally they'd put little tweaks in there, and they all kind of a wink and a nod between each other, and the kid goes to a home. They actually get classified that way.
Wow.
And I can tell you from personal knowledge, and I can certainly back it up with the court records, the abuses that I became aware of. I was probably like you, Doug. I was kind of a babe in the woods in this stuff. You know, I'm out doing other things that are at another level completely. This was totally a distraction. Before I was done, over a period of about 3 years, I came to realize that this is perhaps one of the most pressing things in our country, and in fact, that this is this almost sacrificing of our children into the system. One of the cases that sticks out in my mind that I just couldn't get over was the case of a mother and father. They had 3 children, and the grandparents on both sides were pretty small people. I think the grandmother was like 4'7", and the grandfather was like 4'9". The mother and father were like 5'1" and 5'3". So they're small people, but because their son, he's going into the 1st grade, and they weigh the kids when they come in, and the son weighed down in the lower 10% of this projected weight that a kid should weigh for how many months old he was. The social workers were called, came to the school, and decided he was underfed. Went to the home, examined the home. The father was building a log cabin. His father had given him a section of the land. They were a logging family. The family had been in logging for 100 years. The son drives a log truck, but he'd taken the summer off to finish his cabin, so they say he's not working. Well, he's feeding his family. They've got plenty of money. The dad's retired, but he's not working. They just started back into school, and he hasn't finished his cabin. He's going to finish the cabin and fit it out, and then he'll go back to work. And in the summertime, he can't work logging because he's got sparks and things like that. So he's going to go back to work in just another month or two. But they write the report, child underfed, father's not working, unable to care for the kids. They're living in an unfinished home. Grandparents helping to care for the kids, but they're retired, unable to take care of them. As sure as I am talking to you right now and your people are listening, they showed up, took the kids from those parents, healthy, happy, plump, well-fed, pictures taken the day before they were taken, laughing and kidding, nice, plump little kid, but they're small people. Took those kids and never got them back. Took all the money from the grandparents on legal fees. Ran the parents through the mill like you can't imagine, the tears. A beautiful family totally destroyed. Another case I'll give you. Gentleman was a church worker, wanted to help in the world. He just decided he wanted to do something. He taught English. He never made a lot of money in his life, but he had been to Thailand when he was in the military. He moves to Thailand to work for a mission group teaching English to Thai people. While he's there, one of his students and he get married. Now, at the time, he's like 29 and she's like 23. They have 4 kids in Thailand. He decides to move back to the United States because he wants his kids, who are now just getting ready to start school, to get an American experience. Goes through the whole process, moves here to the United States. Of course, he just gets here. He's kind of struggling to find his feet again. He has a job working in the factory. He's not making a pile of money, but he's just trying to get started. He's only been here for a few months. His wife is Thai. She speaks a little broken English. Somebody in the apartment building where they're living a guy who turns out actually had a history as a sex predator, is constantly badgering her because she's, he thinks she's Oriental, she must be easy or something. And so this one day he's trying to hook up with her, and she says in her broken English, "I know what you. Lo, go away. I know what you." And she swings a broom at him. He calls the police. The police show up, and he accuses her of trying to hurt him. And he shows this mark on his cheek where it's a little brushed up. She had complained to the apartment manager and to neighbors about this guy constantly bothering her, asked them to keep an eye for her when he's around, when her husband's at work. She doesn't work because she's taking care of her kids. Only one of them's old enough to go to school at the time. The police decide that she abused him. They didn't have a way to reach the husband at work because he doesn't have a cell phone or anything like that at the time. Because there's nobody to take the kids, CPS, Child Protective Services, takes the little kids, goes to school and gets the other kid at school, takes the wife, and because she's yelling and frantic, and she can't speak good English, and she's frantic about them taking her babies, they decide to take her to a mental hospital for an evaluation. The husband comes home. The neighbor is laughing and tells him that his wife said she doesn't love him anymore and left with the kids.
Unbelievable.
He can't believe it. He finally gets to somebody that finds out. Long story short, they take those kids, they keep them. He never gets contact with them as children. Later, even though he's seen them a couple times with people all around and everything else, what does the state accuse him of? Because when she's in the hospital, the state accuses him of bringing the kids over and that she's the older sister. She's a small Thai girl. They say she's the older sister and these are her siblings, and that she's underage and he's brought her over as a child bride. He says, take DNA, you can see it's the kids. You have all the birth records. They don't want to hear it. They just wanted an excuse for the kids. The kids get abused in the system. I'll tell you one last story because I could just go on and on. So one of the kids, they put in a home not too far from where I live, which was a good neighborhood. I grew up there. I mean, I had no idea. This place is less than 2 miles from the home that I grew up in a decent neighborhood.
Wow.
This home, where they put this child, one of these children, doesn't have doorknobs on the doors. When we finally get the records the state watched us from getting as hard as they could, it showed that there were over 1,000 kids put through that house in a 3-year period. They said that it was an emergency place because they didn't have enough foster homes to take children in. So they had to put kids in, when they take them from the parents and put them in a police car, this was a home they could take children to take care of. On a running basis, this 4-bedroom home on a daily running basis showed records having 18 to 20 kids in it every night. It had reports going to the police department, to the Attorney General's office, to Child Protective Services, from police officers, fire department aid workers, taxi cab drivers, neighbors, relatives, all saying there's horrible abuse going on in this place. Pimps picking up young girls, 10, 11, 12 years old, and paying off one of the people in this home so they could take the girl and go do what they were doing.
Oh, man.
Children shown as runaways, 6 months old, runaway. Right there in the state's records. Where's the kid? Does it say mother and child runaway? No, there's no mother shows up on the records. How do you have a 6-month-old runaway and never shows back up? This home got hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was all a scam. This is a business. This is a business, and we're paying for it. If you look at the budgets that are going for Child Protective Services for stealing kids from their families under these bizarre things. I thought it was a rare thing. I thought it was, just, a couple here and there. The further I dug in, the worse it was. It just got worse and worse and worse. It was one of the things you almost had to just walk away. You couldn't, and the families, the parents, once they get in the machine, they get tagged a certain way, you're done. Now, some of these kids do need to be, some of these parents are there's a problem. No question about it. And a lot of these workers in the system are trying their darndest to do a decent job. But the problem is they're in a system that's so heavily weighted. Because what is it? It's a cash cow. It's free federal money. They get this money to do this, and they get this matching money for all of the government services. It's a grinder. And they won't stop. There's no incentive to use common sense or reason. I'll just tell you one last one. It was a horrible situation. So, got a kid. He was taken from his parents for all the right reasons. Parents had drug problems, other issues. The kid wasn't being taken care of properly. So, in the course of all this, one of the other kids tells me, have you talked to this certain boy? And I said, I don't know. I've never met him. You need to talk to him. He needs help. Yeah, I mean, if he wants to call me, have him call me. I don't know what I can do. So he gets a hold of me. He's a runaway. He gets a hold of me and he tells me what's going on. He's 14 years old. He's about 6 foot tall. He's tall for his age. Beautiful, handsome, curly, blonde-haired kid. Blue-eyed. And he tells me that the counselors at this place take pictures of him all the time, including nude. And that when I get into the story further, there's all sorts of bizarre things. Well, in the course of talking to somebody else that was involved in this person who had been handling adoptions says, well, we have pictures of some of the kids. They shop these around and they get sperm samples and then they use them for their lesbian friends who want to have babies, gay couples. And so they'll shop the pictures and then decide there's one. She pulls out a file with about 30 pictures in it. I'm going, are you kidding me? No, because they don't have any diseases or anything. They think they're pretty safe and they can think what their kids can look like. And this kid is telling me that he is having to ejaculate to show the counselors that he's not afraid of his sexuality. And what are they really doing? They're FedExing stuff out to these various places as sperm donors. Every time I turned around, and Doug, you know me, we've talked a lot. We have never spoken about this. This upset me so badly, you can't imagine. One of the attorneys that took on a case like this was actually getting real traction. The judges sanctioned him, started fining him for making motions that were absolutely, totally legitimate, legal motions. If you raise that in my court again, I'm going to sanction you. He finally, after being in business, this is an attorney, been in business for like 15 years, had his law schools and everything else. He was run out of business as an attorney, had to leave and go to another state. He started working as a cook, wiped him out, wiped his family out, because he was pursuing these types of cases, and the judges wouldn't have it. Mm-hmm. The money involved, and all you have to do is just do a Google search. All the kids being abused in the system. This is about grabbing kids and handing them out to all their pedophiles. I know there's a lot of great people. I know there's great fostering. The problem is that the legitimate cases are buried in this maze of other cases where there's overreaching going on. If they weren't overreaching, they could actually do the job they need to do on these other kids to help the ones that are truly in need and to supervise their own work staff. But they always say they're overworked, and it's based on how many kids have you got, and then they're always worried about how long have you got them, and we got to keep them because it's about keeping how many kids you got. That's how much better money you get. And then the other thing is he mentioned about the shots. I just, the things that they were doing, abusing kids. Why? Because if a kid has medical needs, it's a special needs child. So if a child had any kind of a minor problem, I mean, they're putting on psychotropics. You talk about the shootings? Look at all these kids. They're putting this stuff out like candy. None of these drugs are approved for minors. But they waive it and they give it to them anyway. They push it on them. They drug them. Mm-hmm. And so these kids end up with all sorts of physical problems besides the emotional problems. And if a kid complains about sexual abuse or something like that, oh my gosh, they'll do an evaluation, say they're just saying to get out, they want to go somewhere else. It's a false accusation, and then they'll put them on drugs and force them to take it and do blood tests to make sure they're taking it. And then the people that have these kids, these foster parents, every time they got to go to the doctor, every time they get paid for it. Well, the other thing is this. So if they have a special needs child, the state gets way more money from the federal government. And the foster care people get way more money to manage the child. They'll get a car, they'll get special accommodations in the house, special clothing allowances, special food allowances, everything else. It's a cash cow. And it goes right back to that very first case. There was money sitting there. They targeted her because she was a cash cow. You can't leave that money sitting there. We got to get that. Find a way. Wow. It's so twisted, my ability to even focus on other things, because as a nation, when you look at what was going on in Israel, if you look at what was going on with the Mayans and the Aztecs, all these societies where there was huge fundamental infrastructure problems at the end where God said, you're done. It's because they were doing what? They were sacrificing their children. They were sacrificing their own children. And right here in our midst, when I started to talk about this with my friends, with my relatives, with neighbors, none of them wanted to hear it. It was like they put their fingers in their ears because, no, that thing doesn't do that. No, I'm telling you, you can't believe what's going on at this house right up the road. Listen, I don't want to hear about it. Please, the state does what it does. The judges are, good judges. They try to investigate. You're not understanding. I'm going, no, you don't understand. This is the worst crimes I've ever seen in my life. They just didn't want to believe that things could be so bad. I testified before state legislature. I prepared reports. I explained it. I went to police officers. They all said, hey, we're limited. There's only so much we can do. The state's, people are trying to do this. And you understood that there was some legitimate cases in there, nothing like what they were going after. And so what happens? While everybody is looking the other way, the most defenseless among us are being sacrificed for dollars. This is a jobs program. This is a money program. Even from the medical standpoint, they were farming these kids out, psychiatrists and doctors, and running them. It was it was a mill. And the deeper you got into it, and you all heard here across the country about the Wenatchee case up in Washington. That was one example of what was going on. You had a kid sitting in a car with a social worker and a sheriff, and she points at the taxi cab driver going the other way, saying, that's one of the guys that abused me. They turn around, pick the guy up, never seen the kid in his life. Kid later admits, yeah, I just said it because they kept pressing me to ask them. Every time I tell somebody they do me a favor, I get to go out and go to a movie and stuff like that. They grab this guy out of his cab. He goes to jail for years. He would have been there for life if it hadn't been for a project that went out and actually tried to show that he wasn't guilty. When people say that they admitted to things that they didn't actually do, I totally know that. All you got to do is go look at the Wenatchee cases with dozens of people accused of horrendous crimes, and there was no there.
Yeah.
Because it's a jobs program.
Jeez. And it seems like I've researched this a lot, and this is a huge problem in Europe. And most of these kids who get taken away from their parents for, smaller issues end up going to places where they are abused horrendously, and it goes unpunished, and they don't worry about that. It's almost like it's a good old boys network with the judges and the police and the child protective services that this is their plan.
Well, I mean, that was what I found. And, for example, they would go to the judge, it'd be a wink and a nod, and the judges were they were literally, I don't want to just focus, listen, I've got gay friends and gay neighbors that are as decent of people as you could get anywhere on the street that I consider to be friends. I run around with a crowd in Hollywood, and a number of them are gay, and I can tell you right now, I don't care what anybody says, they put on awesome parties, and they're wonderful people, and they're not scum of the earth. But there is a component there that is working this, and it's not just even a gay issue, it's also about this money thing, because they're working a baby mill. They are grabbing these kids as a free check. And some of the cases, I mean, I had a guy that was an admitted drug dealer in Mexico. The Child Protective Services took the child away from the mother for legitimate reasons. No doubt about it. Sent a social worker to Mexico to find the father, paid for him to come back to the United States, paid for him to live here in the United States and take care of his own kid. And then take him back to Mexico after like 6 months with going through the court system and everything else. But the kid was born here in the U.S. The kid was a U.S. citizen. And the dad was a convicted drug dealer, an admitted drug dealer. And yet they send him back. It's just, and everywhere you went. I mean, every time I thought I'd heard it all. I mean, it made me to where I almost couldn't talk anymore. It was so upsetting. And the difficulty is these things from reports, you can make a report kind of read any way that you want it to read.
That's right.
And this is a real danger when you're doing this stuff to get a proper outcome, you know where things have to go, etc. But then people get a little over enthusiastic. Pretty soon you got this report and this report matching that report, and somebody else sees that the other report's that way, and so they kind of make their report go a certain way. Next thing you know, just like those little kids taken away that are undersized, they're not malnourished. They're underweight because they're tiny people, because they're from a tiny family.
Right.
It burns me. But you see, we as a society cannot escape the responsibility. God's watching. With our tax money, this is being paid for. And you think that you're going to fool God, or you're going to look the other way and say, well, I didn't know, I didn't have anything, it wasn't my thing. Hey, you know what? It's happening right there with your money right under your nose. And can we escape judgment if this is going on all around us? I'd tell people in church, and they don't want to hear me anymore. I literally, as far as I was concerned, became a pariah because it so consumed me. I had to talk to people about it. Nobody wanted to be around it because they didn't want to hear about it. And every one of these cases was as gripping as you can imagine, with parents trying to be parents, do exactly what their God-given responsibility is to protect, to get their kids out of it. They had a death hold on them. You go back and talk to these kids now, you know, they're adults and the things that they went through, and we paid for it. It's beyond criminal. It's our children being sacrificed to evil, and they're laughing at us about it. The devil's laughing at us. We're spending our money for him to do what he wants to do. But you see, this is the last thing I'll say here, Doug. When people get upset because they don't get a fair day in court on a child custody issue, well, where were they when somebody else wasn't getting a fair shake on a tax issue? Where were they when somebody wasn't getting a fair shake on other, well, it's too complex. I don't really know. So we let things can get to this point where the judges have a free-for-all. The legislators wash their hands and say, well, we can't do anything because the courts are deciding such and so. And next thing you know, your country's completely out of control, and they're using your money to do it. And you're totally ham-fisted. You can't do anything to stop it. But you're paying for it. But at the end of the day, you looked the other way when it was the other guy down the street. If you're looking the other way when somebody like your guest tonight is saying, I'm being railroaded, you know, I just don't know what to do. You know, you can only protest so many days out in front of the court. You're paying for all this stuff. One last case. I'll just give you, just because it's sex abuse thing. So one of the people that I dealt with, who comes to me because we'd known each other when I was in junior high and high school. I hadn't seen him for a long time. Through a friend, he gets to me, says, I just got out of jail. I need a hand. I'm like, what's going on? He says, well, you need me here? I don't know. What happened? Well, I went to jail for 3 years. For what? For being a sexual predator. I'm like, what were you doing? What's going on? He'd been in a horrible car crash. He got burned severely on a large part of his body. He really couldn't afford to go to any hospital to get treated after he got out. So there was a public swimming pool with hot tubs off to the side in a separate room, and he could go in there, but because of all the burns in his waist and his legs, he couldn't wear shorts that would pinch or bind on that. So they put a sign up, because he's under doctor's order, he needs to get the hot tub whirlpool therapy to help the skin heal. Mm-hmm. They put a sign up that he's in the pool, but he only has a towel on, a big, huge, long beach towel around his waist. So he's naked under his swimsuit. He's naked under his towel. A child comes to the door, who's about 6 or 7, and talks to him for a second and wants to get in the pool. And he says, well, you can't do that. And he says, no, that's, I'm just in here, but just find your mom. The mom comes over, sees him, sees the sign on the door, and starts making a big frantic thing. They actually get the cops over there. Nothing happened. The child tells the police officers nothing happened. The mother complains, gets on TV. An attorney sees her on TV, files a claim. Next thing you know, he wants to make this guy like he's a sex fiend. Next thing you know, the guy is being threatened, just like yours was, with going to jail probably for the rest of his life for touching this little girl. Well, even the girl said nothing happened. He ended up having to cop a plea, and he goes to jail. It was said initially he was just going to be on probation. He ends up going to jail in the toughest prison in the West Coast for 3 years. And he never did a thing. There was never an allegation that he did anything other than touch the child sexually, allegedly, which never happened. And people there said, I was in the room. He couldn't have done anything. Didn't matter, because they wanted to get this thing so that they could get the money. And this attorney and that mother got a big settlement from the county because, or from the city, I should say, because they decided they didn't want to have it go to court. So they did an out-of-court agreed settlement. Anybody that thinks they're safe driving down the street any given day, you might be the next one. Just like that cab driver going down the street and somebody in the car points at him.
Yeah.
It is that bad. And it might not be everybody in our audience who's going to have that problem, but you want to be that 1 in 5,000? And this is a very serious situation, very serious.
Yeah, and just wait till things get so bad that travel's restricted and in different areas, and there are TSA-like people on the streets, and this will be much more commonplace than
oh yeah, hey, look,
than it is now, and it's very common now, and it's there's no attention given to it.
Well, I know your listeners. Every one of them has a story. Everybody has got something that they can add in that's just as bad as the last one. I don't know at this point in time what the resolution is, except to say that your tax money's going for this. You know, but think about it. You know, these people who are shaking court. You and I talked earlier today. Look at the president. We have all these allegations of Social Security numbers, income, all sorts of bizarre stuff that's not showing up in the tax returns, loans on properties that he's associated with for millions of dollars going to judges and other people around him that look like bank fraud. And you can't get a fair shake. No court will touch it. No court will give you an actual honest day in court. You're not getting anything from the federal agencies. There's no honest investigations going on. They own the system. If you can't get it on these kinds of cases with the kids and like that, why do you think you would get it on these bigger ones? Because a precedent has been set. So much has gone under the bridge. We're so far down this path where people look the other way that the order of magnitude seriousness, they can get away with it there, they can get away with it anywhere. The lies around us are so great now that you cannot go through a day without having to look the other way on a dozen lies that are being told you about how your money's going to be there when you retire, that you're paying into the system, how, you know, the people, whether the vote's right. How can you have voting machines over and over and over and they're 100% of the vote went one way? Are you kidding me? And nobody's going to jail? And nobody's going to jail. If you don't have an honest vote, you don't have an honest court system, you got crooked judges to outer space.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy your way through the system, and everybody, you know, it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. Okay, well, it's the way it is. We're in deep kimchi. I appreciate you letting me come on, Doug. I've been through these things. Your guest isn't exaggerating. To me, part of the reason why we're going through the crises that we're going through right this minute in our society is because back there, 15, 18, 20 years ago, when this guy's case started, everybody was busy then too. And they all looked the other way. It's not their problem. They don't know. They haven't got time. Okay, so you're sacrificing your kids up. Sow the wind, reap the whirlwind. That's the problem.
Well spoken.
So, and I'm sorry to have dominated the tail end of the show. I know you have lots of people who want to talk about this, and maybe there's people who want to talk in the chat room. I just felt this was important, at least to chime in and take it that one extra level. We need to be praying for these people. They are not always as bad as they're portrayed to be. There's a lot of them that have really, truly, honestly gotten a very raw deal. And I think people have to stop, think about that the system at this point in time doesn't have clean hands. There's plenty of cases, and that's part of the problem. You've got to look at them. There's plenty of cases where there's real bad guys, parents, that they don't need their kids anymore. There's fantastic foster care families. You know, I raised 5 foster kids myself.
Right.
But there is a corrupt element. There's pockets of it. And where it is, it's so putrid. It's so horrible that your people that are listening to the show probably actually cannot even fathom how bad it is. One of the houses, the one with all these kids that have gone through it, 1,003 years, twice a week, a van would come by to pick up kids that wanted to go down to a place where they were having a coven and satanic services. They pick the kids up twice a week and take them down. They get hamburger and French fries on the way down and on the way back. But they wouldn't pick them up to go to a church or let them go to a church.
Wow.
They're laughing at us. They're using our money. They're laughing at us. They are laughing because they've gotten into positions of authority, and they're going to work it. And we're supposed to back down, and we're not supposed to be too aggressive, and we're supposed to be, so, yeah. Very good, Doug. I apologize to your listeners for hogging this tail end and going off on my high horse, but this couldn't be more serious, and I hope that some of your people understand and think about it, and
that's why
there's other ideas out there.
We appreciate this, and that's why I asked Brian to come on and to relate his story, because really to go through the documentation I went through, it's just absolutely it's sickening to see how one person or how one family could get torn apart by a system so out of control. It just I could not believe half of what I was reading.
No, that's true. Yeah, that's where I was at too. But at some point too, the other problem is for guys like you and me, and even for the rest of your listeners, these things become so convoluted, so complex, that if you try to help just a couple people out, you're done. You have no more time left for anything else in your life. And that's part of the way the system is set up. I remember this one mother, in 2 years' time, she was served over 200 different motions that she had to attend court and do filings for.
There's a full-time
One
job.
stretch, she was served 90 consecutive days in a row with court orders. Because why? Because they were doing it to work her. She wouldn't admit to what they wanted her to admit to, so then they overwhelm you. Either you comply and agree to whatever it is they demand, or you're not trying to be honest, and you're in denial. No, I never did it. I never did anything wrong. I'm a great mother. You're in denial. We're taking your other kids because you're in denial. Unless you accept services and allow our oversight and blah blah blah, then you're in denial, and we gotta do what we gotta do. I know your listeners have 1,000 trillion stories, just like what you've heard tonight.
Right.
But our kids are being sacrificed. All you gotta do is look in the Bible. I think you sacrifice your kids to these evil ways, then you carry a responsibility. We're the things that are happening to us as a society, in a very direct way, relate to the way that we have allowed these people to grab our kids and sacrifice them.
Wow. Very well articulated, very well said, and much more articulate than I could have been. I want to thank you very much for that, for the additional information. It does put things in perspective, and it's horrific as well. So it's amazing.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me come on, and good night to your listeners. And I hope that they'll put some prayerful thought into this. And if they know people, the only way we get to this is by the numbers. 2 or 3 of us can't do it. 100 of us can't do it. It has to be a broader thing by the listeners. If you know somebody that's going through something like this, if everybody kind of plays their zone, like you say, and dives in, maybe we have a prayer. But we certainly can't abandon those among us because they're under personal attack, and it's very serious. If it's there, don't just take it at face value. I think you got to look a little deeper. Thanks, Doug. I'll say good night to everyone.
All right. God bless. Thanks.
And that is pretty much the end of our show.
Wow.
I'm going to go back and change the show title because we did not cover anything that I thought we would.
Sometimes
it's okay, though. No, it's obviously I needed to get out, and there's a reason for it. And I want to thank each and every one of you for hanging in there and listening. And tomorrow, 9 p.m., we will be live, 9 p.m. with Steve Quayle. Genetic Armageddon is finally here, and we're going to be going through piece by piece what was written, what he wrote in the book, and what has come true, and what we can expect in the near future with this, scientific God creating, trying to be like God, and creating all this artificial people, crops, whatever. It should be very interesting, and I'm excited for it. So 9 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow with Steve Quayle. We'll be here. You're not going to want to miss it. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you tomorrow.
Have a good night, everyone.